Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Policy Committee for the Athens in Motion Commission. I'm going to pull up our agenda. Can everyone see our agenda? Yeah. Okay, so our main objective tonight is to this draft of the Complete Streets policy, and then if we have time to discuss anything else, we will. Any additions or modifications to the agenda?
Just hopefully at the end, an update on Firefly, and I've got a question too, but we can save it for other business.
Okay. So, okay. All right. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Aaron, and I'll second that. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Well, we have our agenda, and now we're going to go to we get into this. I know it hasn't been that long, but Daniel, have you had a chance to look over it? Do you want to share some thoughts, or do you want to wait on that?
I think we can just keep on going with it. I'll get caught up as we go.
Sounds good. All right. And just a reminder, we are in the implementation. So one of our last sections here. So this bullet point here, as appropriate, transportation projects using complete streets design elements shall include an educational component to ensure that users of the transportation system understand and can safely use a project's elements. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, what exactly does that mean? How would that work?
Yeah, what are we talking about when we mean educational component? Do we mean signage?
Yeah, I wish I was good at sharing, but like we've seen some cities that have done particularly new like bike treatments or new like our rectangular rapid flashing beacons or what have you, actually putting up like printed signs, but also doing social media posts, etc. Basically like explaining how to use them. When Macon did their big pop-up bike network, I actually thought it was really ingenious what they did, and I don't think they worked with Toulon. No, they worked with Better Block out of Dallas. But they basically whenever on literally like lampposts and things like that, they would have big signage like poster size that would be like, this is a buffered bike lane, or like this is a two-way cycle track, and it would literally like explain exactly what it was. And you could certainly do that in English. You could also do English, Spanish. I mean, a number of ways of doing it. And again, you could turn those documents also into social media posts. So, whether it should be in the policy, that's a question of again, what should be in the policy. But I think even when we did this was something that Hillary always asked for, was like, if she could create another position, it would be like a communications person, is what she said. And that's because she wanted to do more communications around like the parking protected bike lane on Hancock, right? Like people were a little confused about it. And so having signage up can really help sometimes.
Yeah, one of the last things that we did before she left, we put together a scope. Since we don't have an internal person to do that, we put together a scope of what it would cost for a consultant to come in and kind of be that outreach and education piece. And so we have that. It now just depends on us getting capital funding. I think I've kind of explained it, and probably in our grants and data group more than any other subgroup, that we run into this brick wall with SPLOST and T-SPLOST funding, because it has to be very project specific, like boots on the ground, concrete poured type of thing. The piece of like programmatic, educational and outreach pieces, it gets really hard to fund that kind of stuff with that. So I've asked in a number of different ways for different funding types to cover stuff like this. But I will say that if it's very project specific, so like for instance, we're putting in green bike lanes and it has a green bike box, which might be new to a side of town that hasn't seen those before. I think we could make a case that that's a project specific cost to promote that as a PSA or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm willing to try that at least and see what the people in finance say.
Would it be helpful to add in the language to say an educational and or marketing component?
Maybe informational rather than marketing, because we're not selling really.
Well, just marketing in terms of social media, all of the like types of outreach efforts that we do from a government standpoint.
Could call it outreach.
Outreach. I was just thinking outreach is
do outreach.
Yeah.
So a lot of this stuff is fairly self-explanatory, right?
I mean, we as the engineers over here think so with, like, oh, a flashing yellow arrow is pretty self-explanatory, right? And we've seen that's not the case. So.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that, we're not doing anything really weird here, but it is a little bit new to Athens. I don't know. Maybe we ought to take a field trip to Macon and see what they're doing down there.
Yeah.
Well, the Macon thing was that was for a pop-up project, but the idea of doing those permanently, they've always said, and it wasn't the streets people that said it, but they basically said, yeah, we would think about doing this if we actually did these as permanent installations.
Okay. Well, I guess, I'll stop beating this dead horse. I guess 10's fine the way it is, since obviously we want to make sure people understand. And if there seems to be a gap in their understanding, then we would figure out a way to resolve that.
I think that this is a really critical thing to ensure the success of these projects. Like even we've had issues with even demonstration projects. And Teresa, to your Macon's event, like the mayor has referenced that to me. So it's a pretty cool thing what they're doing. So I think that this is really important. You guys like this language now of an educational and or outreach component? Is that okay?
I don't have a problem with it.
And are the examples okay? I kind of feel like we should spell it out in this case.
Yeah, maybe give a list of examples, for instance.
Say what, Teresa?
For instance, a list of some examples, just, not a comprehensive list, but just like posters and, social media campaign and, maybe some pop-up events, etc.
Okay. Are you saying that you want me to add posters and pop-up events to this part that I
think it's fine. I think it's fine the way it is. You know what? Let's just leave it the way it is.
I don't know. I was just thinking about going back to 10 years ago when Georgia passed the law that you must give bikes 3 feet of clearance, and there were stickers, and there were so I remember a lot of bumper stickers and T-shirts and things like Bike Athens was doing for that. I mean, do we even want to put marketing materials in? I don't know. Just so that's another aspect of this.
Yeah. And I feel like Bike Athens is really such a great resource for stuff like that.
And my only recommendation is just thinking about policy standing the test of time. So it's not always a bad thing to be vague. you don't, spelling out exactly the for instances might not be relevant a year or two from now, or
Yeah,
just in general.
yeah, we might all have chips implanted in our brains, and so all
There
this
you
is
go.
irrelevant.
All right, so I shouldn't put
Great.
TikTok video on here, huh?
Yeah.
Uh, keep it simple, I guess.
We need a TikTok intern. Who
Yeah.
can TikTok videos for us. Great way to engage the future like transportation policymakers is to bring on some young folks to make TikTok videos for us.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
All right, Daniel, you need to hire. You hear that? You have to hire a TikTok intern for yourself now.
Yes.
That's what we need in TPW.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Engineers. All right.
I'm this one. Understanding that we will probably give this whole thing a once over once again. Number 11, ACCUG shall incorporate design to relevant upcoming revisions to policies and codes. For example, when revising subdivision housing development regulations, templates, and other materials that would integrate, accommodate, and balance the needs of all users in all street projects on public and private streets. Relevant upcoming revisions.
Mhm.
And the reason we can include private streets there is because when you're talking about housing development policies, that's where it starts extending beyond ACC owned right of way. Is that sort of the, because I can imagine some people go, well, why would this in any way, when it's, it's design, it's not, it's shall incorporate design. It's not forcing them to do anything. But that's the hook with private streets, is because we're talking about developments. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that came up with Hickory Street, right? With the mark. So that has come up in Athens-Clarke County. That's not a rarity, or that's not unheard of to happen here. So.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder. Thanks for reminding us about Hickory Street, how the mark had to incorporate into their design.
I will say, if you remember back to some of these previous items, back when Hillary was running this is one that the shall should probably be changed to is encouraged, because it's not TPW that we're talking about. It's planning mostly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think it's worth, I will say, this is a side point, not related to this document, but it is not unheard of to have planning commissions adopt their own policies. So it's certainly a conversation we could have later on down the road after this is done. If folks want to have that conversation with the planning commission, with who's actually the chair now of the planning commission? Is it Mac? I forget who it is. Anyway,
Is Alice not the chair anymore? I thought she was.
I don't think Alice is the chair anymore, but certainly Alice and a few other folks would be amenable. So just as a kind of a general side point to remind ourselves that planning departments and or MPOs and planning commissions have adopted policies as well at times.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move on. Section, performance measures. All right, so how much do we have here? 4 items here. Yeah, so transportation and public works shall measure and report every other year to the mayor and commission, Athens in Motion, general public, a complete streets evaluation using agreed upon performance criteria. So what we're talking about, performance targets. Huh?
Sorry, I was going to say we can change that to every year, because that's something we already do with performance. We present for performance measures in front of the mayor and commission every year. And so we would roll those into that presentation.
Awesome. That's great.
Stephen, what are the performance measures you're currently presenting?
So for bike and ped, it's pretty anemic. It is the percentage of, percentages of roadways with bicycle network and percentage of roadways with pedestrian network. And Daniel and I were just talking about this the other day that I'd really like to flesh those out. We also have safety metrics that we talk about with pedestrian and bicyclist crashes. But as far as network, like tracking the network and how well we're doing with building it out, I'd like to add some more. So that's one of his short-term kind of 6-month goals right now is to work on those. And I think Complete Streets, as it's kind of listed in A there, is a great way to start.
I think that you guys are on the right track with this, but I mean, I'm looking through this really long list, and it sounds like a huge amount of work. And I mean, if it's work you all are doing already, great. But if it's inventing new tasks, is it necessarily going to benefit the Complete Streets effort? I mean, is there a way to kind of simplify it? Like you guys are doing percent of road with bike or ped net in the bike or ped network, but like adding linear feet of new bike or ped or linear feet of bike or ped improvements with repaving, that sort of thing. Maybe crashes at various hot spots over time. Do you keep a record of complaints or compliments or anything like that? I mean, that's a little anecdotal, I know, but I don't know if there are a lot of people complaining about a particular area, that does tell you something. I don't know. I'm just trying to say that I think this looks daunting.
It's work that we want to do for sure. So I think it's worth putting in writing that it's a goal we're looking to get toward.
So you're okay with this list as it's printed out here?
Let me read through. So everything through 1A, 1B, and 1C. Yeah, when we get to, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, so I have some comments written for number 2 there and 3. So if y'all want to go piece by piece, still I can add those. When we get to it.
I did have a question. Do we have a strategic plan in ClearPoint that we are working towards?
We are sort of low on the list of ClearPoint right now, Daniel. So because they've picked a couple of mayor and commission strategic commitments that are not transportation and safety related. We're going to be building those, but they're putting their kind of resources right now towards some of the other departments.
Okay, so my question was kind of framed around that, I guess. Is this the proper place to set those goals and achievables? Or, because with ClearPoint, I think, so basically with our strategic master planning process, you have these overarching goals, strategies, and initiatives, and then performance metrics of those to show that you are completing those goals. And I don't know how often this is going to be updated, but I guess this is just kind of saying this is the bare minimum, and it's not necessarily going to be continually updated with new performance metrics as we move forward. Is that what we're thinking?
I mean, I think it's always an evolving document or set of metrics to track, but yeah, I don't see anything here that really sets us on a path that we're not able to reach or not already on the road to reaching.
Okay. Yeah, it is pretty generalized, so that should be fine.
And so for clarity, ClearPoint is a tracking tool where you define something you're trying to do as something y'all are working with in Athens-Clarke County and by government to set goals and
That's right.
path to meet them. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's
I'm
basically
fine with
performance
going.
metric software.
Awesome. I'm okay with going on to since Stephen you or whoever Stephen was used notes
Yeah,
on this.
2A, no changes to it, but a thought that we may want to create in the near future, we might want to create a performance measures committee to help with this. I know we love committees, right? But I think it would help to have more than just Daniel thinking through what these performance measures might end up being and which ones make the most sense.
Would that be like a data committee?
We've got a grant to data committee. If it's something you just want to put on their list of things to do, okay.
As long as they're okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Well, since we can't find any grants, we might as well be working on data, right?
Yes, that's a great idea. Do you know when their next meeting is? Anybody know? Okay, that's something I need to include in our regular meetings is when our policy committee meetings, when our other committees are meeting. Okay. So
It's not the 17th. That's the next policy meeting. I'll figure it out.
okay, great.
I'll start getting to where I can help you figure out those dates too, Stephen. One day.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. So what other comments about the next?
2B, I put item 2B, I said we'd love to have level of service data, which I think is great to have. It's just been hard to capture accurately. So we've, so any kind of ideas on how that could work. And as an example, we need some, like robust user data. Like for motorists, we've used Waze data before. We have a Waze partnership where we can track volume and speeds, and that's really what you need for level of service to see, how quickly and efficiently people are getting between different segments. I don't know if there's something similar. Maybe Elliot knows if there's something similar for cyclists or pedestrians for level of service tracking.
I would say, have you ever heard of the organization Streetlight? Have you heard of them before? They're a transportation data company. They do some work with GDOT. I have some contacts and people I know there. I'm not sure how deep. I'm pretty sure they work with both state level DOTs and also local like transportation and public works departments. They might be folks to go with on that. I mean, they're going to look at. I mean, they're pulling from multiple data sources to look at. I think bike ped, bike ped stuff. So I can certainly kind of make a connection there, and I think there are companies that do track. And again, I'm not exactly sure where the algorithms and how they get the data, but there are those companies, and they obviously they keep their stuff proprietary, right? They're not like, it's not like what's it called?
I think it froze. I have them pulled up right here, and it looks like modes, metrics, key features. So we can explore that if you want, Stephen.
Sure. Yeah,
and we would probably want to work with Joseph on that as well.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking. Now we've got the GIO, we've got some more robust ways to collect data. You think back to like how Tool did level of service or ease of use, or I guess comfort level. That was more of a survey polling, and I really don't. I hesitate to use that as our baseline for something like level of service. I think you'd need something with a bigger sample size.
Yeah. This looks really nice, though. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and send this over to Joseph for him to look at to see if this is something that he would be interested in helping us get towards.
And I didn't have anything else in number 2 there. Everything else was good.
Okay. Statistics, quantitative and qualitative measurements, number of exceptions, granted complete streets policies, status of updated documents, quality attendance and content trainings for government engineers, planners, others, quality of community engagement, especially in low and moderate income communities through meetings, community events, etc. Benchmarks.
This may be an ignorant question since I haven't been in the workforce for a long time, but the number 2G, hours, quality, attendance, and content of trainings. Does that really tell you anything? If you keep track of that stuff?
So, I mean, some of us with certifications have like specific continuing ed groups of credits that we'd have to meet to keep a certification, but they're kind of keeping track of that themselves. So like Ronnie keeps track of his continuing ed stuff for his.
And that's a much bigger issue than just complete streets too. I mean, that's your whole job, right? Like,
yeah, I don't.
So-
maybe I missed that one. I don't quite know why that one. That one.
yeah, it seems kind of superfluous in here.
Yeah, I kind of think it doesn't really do much for us. I used to love going to training because it got me out of the office. I didn't care what I learned.
Yeah.
These days it doesn't do that.
I know. Everything's virtual. So we feel like this is a bit broad, and we don't really need this performance metric. Okay, I'm going to take it out.
Yeah.
Comments on any of these other items listed in 2. I think these are performance measures.
I'm just wondering how you quantify community engagement. Do you guys have a scheme for doing that, Stephen?
Yeah, they're working on that right now. SPLOST is really leading the efforts on that in how to, I guess, standardize, but also count those engagements. So SPLOST and GIO are working, with the corridor surveys and story maps on ways to how to actually quantify that.
I'm not a measurement expert, but I do like the idea of making sure that we're not just saying like, oh, we put a flyer in someone's mailbox, or like we stood out in a corner in a neighborhood and that was enough. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not a person I'm not a person that has any expertise in it, but I think at least making sure that whatever we're saying we're doing is actually reaching people and is not just, and I wouldn't think that ACC would do this, but just so it's not like like comes across as perfunctory.
Right. We don't want to pay lip service. I mean, if we're going to make this a value that we work by, then, we really need to be able to show, yes, we're doing this.
Right. A good example of how maybe, and this is not the end goal yet, but here's an evolution of some of the numbers. So instead of saying, there's a public forum and 6 people attended, or 30 people attended, instead there might also just be something as simple as saying a public forum and there were 59 comments. This many of them were in favor of X. This many were in favor of Y. So it's not the end goal. I think you need better measurements, but you're getting a comment instead of like counting people's heads and then explaining what that comment meant. But I think you have to be able to track what's a quality interaction, and that's what they're working on doing right now.
Right. And I think it's important to pinpoint your participants. You know, if you can locate them on the map, you know, because if I'm commenting on something that's across town, that's less important than, you know, if it's right in my neighborhood and it affects me every day.
Right, right.
Yeah, that was kind of how we broke down the Firefly public input. You know, we wanted to make sure that all of the information could be presented to mayor and commission when they were making their decision, so they could see the number, where they were from, that kind of thing. But we still have to keep it private enough to where you can't release everyone's, you know, data.
Yeah, I'm interested in this part where it says consideration of their suggestions along, I guess, with documentation of improvements that have resulted in their input. Are we ever able to trace where things come from and say like, oh yeah, we did this based on a resident's suggestion, or a user came forward and said that looked into it and here's what we found out?
I mean, a good example of that would be, at least from the point of view of listening to input. So Cherokee, right, which started as a pedestrian project, and then we got input from people who lived out there and people who showed up on the walk audit, people who did the forum, who said, this is great, the sidewalk project's great, I still have problems or issues with cyclist safety out there. And that was information we brought to the mayor and commission, and that ended up being a multi-use path. Not to say that those comments were, you know, the only factor in that, but it certainly helped.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of stuff is hard to like quantify, but I think as long as you are tracking it, you know, in a way that's easy for someone to parse through, I think that's really all we need.
Yeah. What about the last item, other benchmarks? Good with that? Okay. Moving on to item 3, annual evaluation, including equity analysis of complete streets policy. It shall include, but not be limited to, the following: a summary of how the policy implementation is being prioritized in low-income communities, moderate and historically underserved African American communities, and then a comparative analysis. Okay. Are we able to do this on an annual basis?
Yeah, so my comment, and again, this was back when I was talking to Hillary about this before, she had said, if this is provided by the bike ped coordinator, we should probably agree to every other year. If this is something that the Athens in Motion Commission wants to help put together or lead, it could be every year. But while we can commit to the performance measures every year, since that's something we're doing, this might be too many reports on a yearly basis, but I haven't asked Daniel about it yet.
I think 2 years is a good interval. I mean, things move at a glacial pace when it comes to pouring concrete.
Yeah, I think that 2 years might give us better data or be able to look at things a bit more holistically, honestly. So I think that every other year would be good.
Okay.
The one thing I would say would just be like, yeah, I mean, when this gets presented, and obviously this is kind of a consideration not on content, but on how it's presented, right? It's like, make sure that the commissioners and other folks understand that the reason you want to do it every 2 years is not because you're trying to like avoid anything. It's because of those sorts of things, right? Like it's appearances sometimes, yeah, sometimes appearances, people say, oh, well, why aren't you doing it every year? Like, well, it's like, we need to be ready to defend it, which I think we would be, because some people don't understand that glacial pace we're talking about.
Yeah, good point.
Elliot, do you think that we should mention our reasons in this, or we just need to know our reason?
I think probably just need to know it. I think putting it in almost like tips your hand that something is right. It's like it comes across too you don't want to come across too defensive in the document. I think be ready to defend it if you need to. And I think the one thing people will make, and again, I think a lot of times complete streets policies define these things by like census tract, particularly around census tract data on income. So again, I think the important thing for like talking about this when it comes up is to be able to explain how TPW, AIM, Daniel's sort of office, like how they define these communities, right? Because that can be a bit nebulous to some folks. So whether that means like, yeah, I'm not sure how they define that, and I'm not sure how the DIE office within ACC defines those communities. So again, I think a lot of times, like in a lot of documents, I've seen those like referred to as communities of concern, and a state or a city or a region will actually, again, they'll use census tract data and sort of actually have, whether it's like voting districts, so it's not like a council district or commission district, but breaking it down, it'll actually go a little further and deeper, if that makes any sense. Like a voting district, or I don't know what that term you would use, but yeah, is that the right word? Voting district?
Precinct?
Precinct. Precinct's the better word. I mean, that's what I've seen. I think some people break those things down because it's a smaller unit than like a city council or county commission district. And you start and you get like police districts, commission districts, and school board districts are all different, but at least the voting precincts are smaller units, so it's a little more responsive to the issues that we're talking about.
Would we want to go with the neighborhoods that were outlined by the Office of Inclusion? They have 15 neighborhood leaders. They split Athens up into 15. Stephen, I'm having trouble with the term.
Are those LSGTs? Is that through the school system?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was with the school system.
Yeah, because each elementary school has an LSGT, local school governance team, and then there's one for each elementary school. So
let me pull it up real quick, because there's a specific name I'm looking for.
Yes, Elliot, thank you for reminding us. This is something that we need to figure out what our definitions are and align those with ACC's definitions in terms of
Family connection.
like, I don't think anybody would. Oh, sorry, I don't think anyone would have a problem with these things being measured. I just think they'd want to make sure that there's a clear understanding.
Right. Because you can't lie with statistics, and we don't want to be accused of that ever.
It's the Family Connection Neighborhood Leaders.
Right.
The partnership between ACC Gov and Family Connection CIS of Athens, and they're called prosperity zones. There's 16. I don't know if that's where we want to go with that, but
yeah, I think those are by elementary school, because it's like Alps, Barnett, Barrow, Chase, Cleveland. Those are the
yeah.
Yeah. The one good thing about that is that the Athens well-being project also uses those as a like when they've done data, when they basically pulled data from one-on-one interviews and things like that, they've used those 16 districts as their benchmark and or as their baseline like unit. So that's actually maybe, and we got a lot of good data from that because in the like transportation domain, people were talking about like, you know, things like wanting places to walk or bike or like things like that, trails, that all rose to the top in those domains. So, I mean, that helps us, but even if it didn't, it would still be useful.
I mean, should we go ahead and implement that language? How policy implementation is being prioritized in the various prosperity zones? Should we just say that?
I like that. I mean, because they're based around schools, and schools generate a lot of pedestrians and bicyclists as a rule. And I think that having those neighborhood leaders there means we already have somebody that we can ask questions of and that can provide information to us.
Elliot, are you trying to talk? Because I think you're muted.
Sorry, yeah. So the prosperity zones and the LSGTs and all that, that's for the whole. So basically, if you say for the prosperity zones, that's 16 of them, it covers the whole county. Like it doesn't differentiate down. I guess the question is like, that means all, yeah, it's, I guess in terms of, we might just want to get a good definition of from the DNI office kind of on how they define it, because some, like for instance, just, you know, there are kids who live in Bethel Homes who are at Barrow Elementary, right? But like Barrow Elementary also pulls from 5 Points. And so when you're talking about like low, moderate income and historically African-American, 5 Points is definitely not that neighborhood, but Bethel Homes is. And so it gets confusing. I guess thinking about the, I'm not sure if, again, it might be something we really need to talk to how the other ACC departments, how they're defining these.
Okay. Yeah, it's been on my list to reach back out to Crystal and collaborate with her.
I just sent a link to the webpage for the neighborhood leaders and the FCCIS in chat. So if you guys want that for future reference, I would say if we're specifically calling out prosperity zones, my only concern would be, what if they change the name to a different type of zone, or they have different terminology? So that would be my only concern.
It's a living document. We're going to update this. Actually, what's going to happen is there's going to be a new Athens in Motion Commission. They're going to be like, what were they thinking? And they're going to rewrite the whole thing. A totally new manual. Be like, there must be pedestrian bridges everywhere.
Well, God bless them.
Yep. Passing the torch. All right, so we got a language. So the last language is that the county manager's office shall facilitate the connection of baseline annual data for selected performance measures outside the purview of the Transportation Public Works Department. That's right. Yeah.
So my question is, what is who selects those selected performance measures outside the purview? So are those, like, who selects those? And I guess the reason that matters is because if it's something that is outside of TPW and it's not already being tracked through something like ClearPoint or through what the manager's already, I don't know that we can say put a shall on Blaine to start having those being tracked by other departments.
I mean, what is an example of something that would fall outside the purview that might be relevant here? I know, it's a stumper.
I mean, I guess, I mean, anything related to, private roads as a part of developments, but that again,
Yep.
it's a pretty small percentage of data. I mean, I think greenway miles. I mean, I think again, that's not related exactly to complete streets, but that's certainly relevant to bike and ped safety within AIM. So I don't know.
Do we even have this there, or I mean, you know, maybe we need to say something like, as needed, you know, we'll develop new performance measures based on changes, or, you know, in geography or demographics or whatever. I mean,
Is the purpose here to say that GIS should be like in charge of the collection and reporting of the data to kind of keep us in check so that we don't go off on our own collecting data and managing it?
good question.
Because I'm kind of wondering, because I know GIO works out of the manager's office, and so to me it sounds like that. But I can ask Joseph about that. But yeah, I don't know if shall, because I'm just not sure if it's saying that we are requiring them or they're requiring us.
Yeah, see, this whole thing doesn't really make any sense to me. Number 4. I mean, obviously we can't predict every possibility of things that we might want to collect data on. So, I mean, maybe we just have a provision in there that we, you know, we continue to evaluate and, you know, refine the complete streets process over time based on performance data that we collect.
Yeah, maybe at the very top of performance measures where it says, you know, these are measured and reported using agreed upon performance criteria. You could add something that says that, you know, constantly evolving or updated, you know, however you want to word that.
Okay. So measured and recorded based on agreed upon criteria.
Agreed upon and consistently updated. I don't know what you want to say there.
And
Periodically updated.
maybe periodically reviewed
Sure.
for relevance.
Is criteria plural or singular? Is it which are or which is?
Criteria is a plural. Criteria are. A criterion is.
So criteria which are reviewed.
Correct.
And what was the other sentence y'all said? I was gonna maybe put that in there instead. Reviewed on a periodic basis? Periodically?
Reviewed for relevance or something like that.
Yeah?
Good.
Is this ending at 6 o'clock?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I just realized my battery is running low, and
Okay.
I got the new I got the new tablet, or not new, but it's the old tablet, but it did not have a charger with it. So working with Hillary on getting that from her.
It's solar. You just have to sit outside all day.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to, I know that we're not sure about this last line. I want to break through in case we remember, like, what are we trying to achieve here? So, so that way it's still, at least we can look at it. All right, we've got first review of this, and I need to reach out to Crystal again. It's part of our next steps. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. All
This
right.
is sitting in the Google Docs now, so so we can take it and print it out and read it out loud to ourselves.
That would be awesome, Teresa. Do that.
That's
Yeah.
how I read stuff, is I read it out loud.
Yeah, I know. And I was kind of summarizing more than reading it word for word. So that would be great, Teresa, if you did do that. That would help us all. Yeah, so let's get some clarity on language from diversity and inclusion. And we are meeting again in 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, so we are meeting again. Maybe take another look at it and look at our notes and do a last sort of like, okay, look through and decide our next steps. Sound good? Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So we have a call left. In other business, Firefly Trail, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron.
Yeah, just so they voted to approve A last night, correct? It's awesome. Great work, y'all, on that. I mean, it was definitely, I think we see the fruits of our labor there, and also the feedback from citizens. So it's awesome. I wanted to ask real quick too about the REM trestle. Is that, last I heard, I thought it was supposed to start construction in the spring. Is that still the case?
Yes. Last I heard from Derek, which was, I think, a couple weeks ago at Rails to Trails, is that we should start seeing construction on the ground 30 to 45 days from then. So I think within the next month, we'll start seeing some really good stuff happening over there.
Awesome. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. A lot of good stuff happening. And then segment 2 is coming along nicely. I know, Aaron, that's the downside of not having our T-SPLOS meetings. We don't get the cool construction updates.
We don't know what's going on, and there was worry that was going to be delayed because of construction costs, but that's proceeding forward.
Well, I think we'll definitely have a meeting this month because based on what was in the Barber Street concept timeline, it says that they were going to kick it over to T-SPLOS for approval, right? So we should have a meeting in March. Yeah. And just a final note, Elliot, it's been so great to have you on this committee. I think that to Craig's point, we can have more folks on these groups. Let's think about people who we can engage. There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And we still have in our work plan to do an intersections policy, considerations for small sidewalks, all really exciting stuff. Probably won't be as long as the new complete streets document, but still a lot of work to do. And it's just a great way to engage folks. And, they don't have to be transportation experts. I think that it's great to have regular people, who walk or bike or use their wheelchairs,
So Lauren, do we have any news from the commission about when we might get a replacement for Carol and whether we might get a couple new bodies?
We don't. I sent an email. I talked to the mayor. Was it the Monday before last? And then he asked me to send an email to him and to the clerk about Carol's position and our desire to have 2 additional commissioners.
Okay.
So no word there. And Blaine did get back to me about our budget and said that he was going to look into it. And I haven't heard anything. I mean, it's really busy right now, so I'll probably follow up with both these folks soon before our next meeting. Yeah.
Just as an FYI, Karina Gallagher, who's one of the neighborhood leaders, I think had expressed interest in various points in being engaged on sort of mainly sort of bike ped safety, safe routes to school kind of issues. Kind of not just where she lives, but also which I think she, or maybe it was she lived in East Athens and maybe she lives by Fowler now because that's the neighborhood. Well, I don't know. That's the neighborhood she's working in as Fowler Drive. So she might be a great person to consider engaging on some of this stuff within the committee, or as an AIM member for that matter.
Great.
Nominates AIM commissioners or potential commissioners. How, I don't even remember how that all worked.
I have to pull up our bylaws. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I think the mayor and commission have to do it, right? That's a great question.
I think people got nominated and/or people applied, and then they did interviews, right?
Yeah, that's how it was. We
Yeah.
we applied and we interviewed.
Yeah, I guess that's what happened because Mike Hamby said something about it, and he said that maybe I wanted to apply, and so then I looked it up on the website. That's what happened, and then I
Yeah.
applied, and then
Yes.
yada. We need to get somebody to announce a vacancy so that or 3 vacancies, so we can get some peeps.
Yeah, that's I think that's how it works for the other commissions is posting and people apply. There's applications, but I don't know who reviews the applications for those commissions and committees.
Like planning commission and historic, or yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think that there's an application process for that.
I think manager's office.
Probably.
I think manager's office manages it.
One would hope.
Yeah, right. But I don't know who in the manager's office.
Yeah. Okay.
Sarah George would be a good contact. I can check with her.
Okay. Thank you. All right, y'all.
Elliot's bored. Time to say goodbye.
No. I spent about 5 hours today on Zoom meetings with 5 different staffers from like member of Congress staffers, and so like I'm beat, and I've got 2 more Zooms before the day is over. So
Ooh, good luck.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's
I'm gonna run catch some friends at Authentic. So it's been a long day for me too.
All right, y'all. Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye. Thank you.
Stay up.
Bye.